Good afternoon, and welcome to Target Center's nationwide accessible collaborative platform. That's the fancy word term we use for this webinar room that we're meeting in today. Today, we have a wonderful presentation from a partner at the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and they will be they will be participating in our Experience Ability series that we have done every month, focusing on different disabilities and what it's like in the workplace for these individuals with these disabilities and the things you need to know when working for them or with them, and of course the benefit as well of having these individuals in the workplace. So normally we would be in person in the Target Center having a nice conversation in person and streaming video on YouTube so you can see Steve's face. I would say a lovely face, but I have not seen him. I've only met him online. But we thank everyone for their flexibility due to this summit going on in DC, and that we're still able to have a great audience for this important event. So, my name is Paul Lloyd. I'm the Education Program Manager for the Target Center. And for those of you who have not used Adobe Connect before and that are attending live, just to let you know, the slide deck will move on its own. Well, it won't move on its own. The presenter will move the slide through for you. We will make a PDF of the slides available on our website and a recording of this presentation. Captions you should see below the presenter area there. You can change their size and contrast and fast forward and rewind and do whatever you need to there if you use the captions. You can also make the slides full screen. Most people should be able to do that if they want. Please use the Q&A area to submit any technical issues to me, and I will review them and get back to you. Or if you have a question for the presenter, I will forward those on to him, and he will either build them into the presentation or just get to them at the end as sort of a Q&A. So whenever your questioning comes to mind, feel free to put that in that area. If you have a question that you're watching this later or you are not able to use the Q&A area, even though it is accessible, you can email target-center@usda.gov, and we will get that question to the presenter to be answered at a later time. And at the end of the presentation, we will open up a survey for you. We would really appreciate your feedback. So, now that that's out of the way, let's get to what you came here for. Thank you for joining us. And now I'm going to turn things over to Steven Nissen from the National MS Society, who was referred to us by our good friends at the Job Accommodation Network, who did a great presentation for us on MS a couple weeks ago, and who comes highly recommended, and we look forward to the presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you all for allowing me to join you today and kind of saying the same as Paul. Really do appreciate everybody's flexibility in terms of turning this into the webinar. So just to give you some kind of insight in terms of the general program in terms of topics that I'm going to be covering today, is really this training is designed to help you become more familiar with multiple sclerosis, really go over some of the general medical aspects that pertain to multiple sclerosis, but then really delve into more what are the specific employment concerns or considerations for employees who are living with MS. We'll be focusing on some of the key characteristics of multiple sclerosis, like it being an adult onset disability. Oftentimes the person may have hidden or non-apparent symptoms. We'll be talking a little bit about that and really talk about the implications that those characteristics might have in the workplace. I'm also going to really talk about some of the practical accommodation strategies that might be beneficial in terms of working with employees who have been diagnosed with MS. And I'm going to finish on really talking about some of the resources that we at the National MS Society can provide you if you have a coworker, an employee who has been diagnosed or who's living with MS, to know what sorts of resources that we would be able to provide to you. So to get us started, just some basic medical related issues or facts about multiple sclerosis. So multiple sclerosis is considered to be an autoimmune disease that affects the central nervous system. So with an autoimmune disease, something triggers the body basically to turn upon itself. Multiple sclerosis literally means many scars. So the name is really derived from the inflammatory response and the scarring that occurs within the central nervous system, which is comprised of the optic nerves, our brain, and our spinal cord. And the myelin sheath is what gets affected. If you picture like a telephone wire or a power cord to your lamp, within that lamp there's the wire itself, and it's protected by that rubberized coating. If you kind of envision our nerves similar to that, the myelin sheath is that protective coating that would surround that wire, and that is what is being impacted in multiple sclerosis. So something is kind of affecting that myelin sheath, causing an inflammatory response, and then some scarring that occurs. Multiple sclerosis is not fatal, it's not contagious, it's not directly inherited, and it's not always severely disabling. I think that last point is a key one, just to know that really with MS, no two people are the same. So that's one of the things that we'll be kind of coming back to later on. So this slide just kind of represents another way of seeing the impact that multiple sclerosis is having on that myelin sheath, where there's the yellow kind of coating that surrounds the nerve fiber. There may be scarring and inflammation. And then at some point, not always, but in some situations also, the nerve itself may be impacted or may be severed. Um, and this type of activity can occur in various places within the central nervous system. So what causes MS? One of the challenges with MS, well, there are several challenges that we know with MS, but we're not exactly sure what causes multiple sclerosis. We believe that there may be a genetic predisposition. So, like I said before, it's not directly genetically inherited, but we see that when one member of a family has been diagnosed and is living with MS, there's a greater likelihood that someone else in that family has it or will develop it. So there seems to be some sort of genetic component to it, but we also believe that there's also some sort of an environmental trigger that a person might be exposed to, which could then lead that person to be diagnosed with multiple sclerosis later on in their life. There have been several different theories, and research continues to be done to really try to get at the crux of what causes multiple sclerosis. They've looked at various different sorts of viruses, they've looked at different sorts of bacteria. There's been a lot of research done recently really looking at the role that things like vitamin D play. So we're not sure. Research continues to be done, and research has been done for many, many years, really trying to figure out what causes multiple sclerosis, because until we can truly determine the cause, it's going to be difficult to come up with a cure. This slide is just another kind of graphical representation of what causes multiple sclerosis. So we believe there to be a genetic predisposition that, in combination with some sort of an environmental trigger, those things combined lead to an immune response within that person, which then leads to that loss of the myelin sheath, that protective coating, and possibly the nerve fiber itself. So who gets multiple sclerosis? We consider multiple sclerosis to be a disease that affects young adults. Most people are diagnosed between the ages of 20 and 50. It can be diagnosed younger than that. There's been more focus placed on pediatric MS cases. And I've worked with people who have been diagnosed later on in life, after 50, but most people are diagnosed. The majority of cases are diagnosed when a person is between the ages of 20 and 50. And this is, again, kind of prime of life, and from an employment perspective, prime of career. So that's why really MS has some very kind of specific employment considerations as compared to other types of disabilities or conditions. MS is more common in women compared to men, about 2 to 3 times more often diagnosed. This is fairly common for some of the other autoimmune conditions, which seem to be more prevalent in women. Again, we're not sure why. More common in those of Northern European ancestry. Again, not sure why this is, but it's more common when we look kind of across the board with MS, more common in Caucasians than Hispanics and African Americans, rare among the Asian community. But I do always kind of like to talk about the caveat of we really do need to look at the demographic makeup of our communities. I have been with the National MS Society for 18 plus years, and for the majority of that time worked as part of our local chapter that's located here in Washington, D.C. And we had a very high African American population, to the point that through our local office, we actually had 2 self-help groups or support groups that were really kind of focusing specifically on the African American experience of people living with MS. So even though we look at that in terms of kind of across the board, we always want to look at just kind of the racial and the demographic makeup of our local communities. MS is more common in the temperate climates of the world. What this means is farther from the equator, there's a higher prevalence of multiple sclerosis. Closer to the equator, there is less multiple sclerosis. Again, just one of those kind of interesting facts that puzzles us. We believe there to be approximately 400,000 people with MS in the United States, 2.3 million within the world. We're not 100% certain of the kind of actual numbers because there's no mandatory reporting. That's one of the things that we as an organization, in partnership with some other neurological conditions, are really looking at creating almost like a registry of some sort. So that's where some of our kind of activism work is focusing on. And every week, about 200 people or so are diagnosed with MS. So how is MS diagnosed? This again is one of the challenges in terms of that there's not one specific medical diagnostic procedure that is done to come up with a definitive diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. It's oftentimes done in a combination of things. Medical history, looking at the symptoms and the signs. Typically, a person would be referred to a neurologist who would make that definitive diagnosis. So that neurologist would take their clinical history. There does need to be evidence of scarring in at least 2 areas of the central nervous system. And those experiences, those neurological experiences, need to have occurred in different locations and different times. So what that means is that a person needs to experience 2 different neurological symptoms, say for instance vision and tingling and numbness. So 2 different parts of the central nervous system or 2 different parts of the body separated over time. So when a person experiences their first neurological symptom, they may not get that definitive diagnosis of multiple sclerosis until they've experienced that second experience. And there must be no other explanation. By this one means oftentimes what the neurologist is doing is trying to rule out other conditions. When we talk about symptoms here shortly, you'll see oftentimes symptoms that we see with MS may be common for other types of conditions as well. So oftentimes they're trying to rule out other medical conditions or chronic illnesses. So the types of tests that are typically done as part of the diagnosis process, the MRI, that's looking for specific plaques or white kind of areas within the central nervous system that may appear um, in those films. The evoked potentials, that's measuring the electrical activity within the brain. And then also a lumbar puncture. So this is a spinal tap, and that's specifically looking at a specific protein that appears to be in some, not all, but some people with MS in that spinal fluid. So again, this kind of does add to the challenge with MS is that there's not one specific diagnostic procedure that's done. This process can take time. It can be very frustrating for the individual. They may be missing time from work while they're going through this diagnosis process. So just it's not, and it's not the same for everybody. So what's the prognosis? It's important to remember that the majority of people with MS do not become severely disabled. Um, we see that about a third of people with MS will have a very mild course of the disease, about a third will have a moderate course, and about a third will become more significantly disabled. But the reality is that no two people are the same. Oftentimes I say that if you've met one person with MS, that you have met one person with MS because no two people are the same in terms of their symptoms, their experience, the patterns or the disease course that their multiple sclerosis follows. So I would really caution against making any kind of formal assumptions about people based strictly on the diagnosis of multiple sclerosis or based on your previous experience with someone who is actually living with MS. Just take each person individually. Generally speaking, when we talk about MS, there's four general patterns or types of MS. You see them here on the slide: clinically isolated syndrome, relapsing remitting MS, primary progressive, and secondary progressive. Clinically isolated syndrome is that first episode of the inflammatory demyelinization. So like I was saying before, when you're going through the diagnosis process, a person does need to have at least two evidences of the scarring, the neurological symptom. So after that first experience, a person could be diagnosed with this clinically isolated syndrome, but wouldn't get that formal diagnosis of multiple sclerosis until that second event. So that could become MS if that second activity does occur. Relapsing remitting is the most common form of multiple sclerosis. We believe about actually 85% of people with MS, this is the pattern that their MS follows, which is marked by attacks or relapses followed by recovery or remission. And you'll see on the subsequent slides some kind of graphical representation of that. Just a person goes through periods of exacerbation or flare-ups, and then they go into remission. They may go back to baseline symptom or to baseline, not experiencing any symptoms, or there may be some permanent symptoms that do remain, but there's no apparent progression during those periods of remission. Primary progressive MS, about 15%. This is the pattern that their MS follows. From the onset, from the diagnosis, there's a gradual decline or a gradual progression in terms of worsening of symptoms without those marked exacerbations or the flare-ups. Secondary progressive is the other pattern. This is for folks whose disease initially follows that relapsing remitting pattern, but for most individuals, at some point in the future, their condition will become more steadily progressive. They may or may not continue to experience those flare-ups or the relapses, but at some point in the future, their disease may kind of convert to more progressive in nature. We'll talk about treatments here in just a few minutes, which have really been shown to help modify the course of the disease. These next three slides are just some more graphical representations. Again, the relapsing remitting. You see here kind of the spiked bars, which would increase or which would kind of reflect that the exacerbation or the flare-up. In primary progressive, It's more of a gradual, if you just kind of picture a line, almost like on a diagonal, just a gradual progression of the disease. And then secondary progressive, again, begins with those marked kind of exacerbations, flare-ups, but then at some point it may become more progressive and just gradual worsening of the symptoms. So what are the possible symptoms? Again, no two people are the same. Fatigue is probably the most common symptom that we see with MS, but other symptoms can include vision problems, stiffness, which is also described as spasticity, cognitive changes. This could include memory, attention, processing difficulties, walking difficulties due to either weakness or balance issues. People do experience various types of emotional changes, depression, mood swings, bowel and bladder dysfunction, sexual problems, tingling and numbness in various parts of the body, heat sensitivity, speech swallowing, pain, tremor. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. It's also important to realize that most oftentimes one person with MS is not going to experience all of these symptoms. This is just giving you a sense of what a person may experience. How is MS treated? So again, like I mentioned before, we are continuously looking to find a cure, but until that time, in terms of treatment, focuses on treating the exacerbations or those flare-ups, slowing the disease progression itself, managing symptoms, looking at ways to maintain and to improve function, and to enhance and to improve persons with MS, their quality of life. So during those exacerbations, again, when that person's in the relapsing remitting stage of MS and they have those exacerbations or flare-ups, which are defined as new symptoms or an aggravation of the old ones, which last at least 24 hours. During those exacerbations, they may be treated with a course of steroids to help reduce the inflammation that's going on within the central nervous system. Oftentimes, these steroids are given by an IV. It's very kind of high dose, intense IV steroids, typically for several days. And then after a certain number of days, then oftentimes a person may be prescribed to take steroids by mouth, just to taper it down, to taper it out of the body. It's important to realize that not all of the exacerbations actually require treatment. Again, that's really determined on a case-by-case basis. How is the disease course itself treated? It is important to recognize that there are currently 13 FDA-approved treatments that are called the disease-modifying therapies. These are not cures, but what they are really designed to do is to try to modify the course of the disease over time by reducing the severity and the frequency of the disease activity. To try to reduce that scarring that is occurring. It's important to realize that these are not symptom management medications, so a person may not feel any different by taking one. But hopefully what it's doing is that it is treating the underlying kind of disease activity itself. We as an organization do recommend that a person start on one of these 13 disease-modifying therapies as soon as possible. This was a very big step. Again, I've worked with and for the MS Society since 1998, and for us to recommend that people start on early treatment, just because the research shows that these diseases have proven effective to many people in terms of really slowing the course of the disease down. This slide just does list, just in case anyone's curious, the names of the 13 drugs. I include the slide just from the perspective of one, they are administered through various routes of delivery. They could be self-administered injections. They could be prescribed as like an IV injection. Some are pills that are taken by mouth. And also just in terms of for the history of multiple sclerosis, for as long as MS has been around, these treatments are fairly modern in terms of the first one was approved in 1993. And the latest one was just approved in actually 2015. There are definitely more that are coming down the pipeline. And again, this is where also some of our research efforts are really focusing on. So how are the MS symptoms treated? Again, symptoms we already kind of talked about. During those active exacerbations, steroids might be prescribed, but the ongoing symptoms, um, symptoms that are caused by that active, the the inflammation, are likely to subside as that inflammatory process subsides. But symptoms that are caused by scarring and to the nerves themselves are likely to remain. There may be some specific symptom management medications. If a person may be experiencing difficulty walking, there's actually a multiple sclerosis symptom management medication. If a person is experiencing bladder problems, that could be managed through some medications, or fatigue. So it really is a matter of looking at specific symptoms, but also oftentimes people are receiving rehabilitation therapy as well, physical therapy, occupational therapy. Wellness has really come into the focus a lot recently in terms of people with MS, and actually the National MS Society really looking at the role that wellness plays in terms of helping manage symptoms and to kind of overall to enhance a person's quality of life. So moving on to really kind of the employment considerations, just to kind of give some feedback in terms of there have been several research studies done throughout the years that are really looking at the specific employment concerns of people with MS in the workplace. Those research studies show that about 90% of people with MS have worked. At the time of diagnosis, about 60% are still working. But you jump ahead about 5 years to 10 years down the road, the percentage of people still employed drops to about 40%, 40 to 43%. These figures have gone up slightly throughout the years. Previous studies that were done back in the 1980s showed that only about 30 or 33% were still working. So thinking about 1980s, it predated the ADA and some of the legal protections. It predated any of the treatments that are now currently available. So I think, again, we're not 100% certain, but I think it's pointing at kind of the impact that legal protections and medical advances can have on a disability group in terms of people continuing to stay employed. But obviously, we still have more work to go, hopefully, to increase these numbers. And that's why I think really working with the employer community is so important, like programs like what we're doing today. Thinking about the impact of multiple sclerosis in terms of, again, people are diagnosed between 20 to 50. Oftentimes diagnosis is occurring in the midst of a person's career. So as an adult onset disability, that person oftentimes has completed their advanced training and degrees. They've been moving up in the career ladder. They have a wealth of experience, but now they are diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, which may have an impact on their ability to continue to work, or to continue to work at the level in which that they had been working previously. So this reflects what we hear from our clients and our constituents that we work with in terms of potential reasons why people are leaving the workforce. We oftentimes are hearing that people are leaving voluntarily and prematurely. They may not have been aware of or fully tapped into their legal protections. They don't know necessarily how to accommodate their symptoms on the job. Disclosure is a big concern, and we're going to be talking about that here shortly. Just the variability, the unpredictability. Again, thinking about the disease patterns, that relapsing and the remissions, a person really never knows when they might experience that next exacerbation or the flare-up. So that can be really challenging to think about being a reliable and a regular or a reliable employee. And again, the unpredictability also in terms of just the symptoms, the type of symptoms come and go. What we hear is that sometimes significant others in that person's life tell them or maybe encouraging them to stop working, whether this is a family member or a doctor saying that work is too stressful, they've got enough to deal with. We know that this is a fallacy, and oftentimes work can help make a person feel more positively about themselves, given their sense of self and sense of identity. Um, we know that unemployment does not cure stress. In fact, unemployment can bring on a whole slew of other stresses when it comes to financial stability and health insurance and benefits and those sorts of things. We also have heard that sometimes people just don't know about the resources that would be available to help them to maintain employment. And transportation can be a barrier. Again, we're, I guess, fortunate enough here in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area that we do have a paratransit system, but that's not always available within all communities. And even our local paratransit system, it has some reliability concerns sometimes that can pose a barrier to a person maintaining employment. So just to go in a little bit more detail in terms of really the adult onset disabilities. Again, these are now really some of the key characteristics of people with MS. Like I mentioned before, oftentimes people have completed their advanced trainings and their degrees, pardon me. They've been working in their chosen occupation and have been moving up the career ladder. They've been taking on more and more responsibilities. But due to the unpredictability, there may come a point in time where they need to reevaluate if they can continue to work um, at that same level. So looking at ways to maintain employment or to retain employment is oftentimes what people with MS may be grappling with. Um, Thinking about, and this was based on some research that it's slightly dated, but I looked to get a more um, updated stats, but I don't see that it's been updated. But just the probability of a white collar worker becoming disabled for 90 days or longer between the ages of 35 and 65 is 27% for men, 31% for women. And I include this statistic from the perspective of not just for multiple sclerosis, but 1 in 3 of us will develop some sort of an adult onset disability that's going to impact our ability to work. So we may be missing time from work. So this realization that kind of any one of us can experience a disability at any time. So just be thinking about what you feel like that some of your employment concerns or fears would be, and maybe how you would want your coworkers, your supervisor, your colleagues to treat you if in fact that did occur to you. With MS, again, we talked about the symptoms before, but oftentimes these symptoms may not have any visible symptoms. So the focus on non-apparent disability. Oftentimes the constituents that we work with, employees who are living with MS, really, hear so often, not only from their coworkers, but oftentimes family members and friends that, but you look so good mentality. That can be really challenging, can be frustrating to the individual with MS, but it may also impact that the other person or the people in that person's life, their true understanding of what it's like to live with a condition like MS. So that can really take its toll. Um, when there are non-apparent symptoms, it can be that much more stressful for that employee to both from the disclosure perspective, but also in terms of requesting accommodations. They might not want to be seen as getting preferential treatment. So therefore, they might choose not to disclose, not to request accommodations, which then might negatively impact their productivity and their effectiveness on the job. We know that laws like the ADA and the Rehab Act do really focus on some of the disclosure concerns. So people oftentimes are grappling with what are the legal kind of requests, or I'm sorry, not requests, but what are the legal reasons for uh, uh, disclosure, but also what are the practical reasons? Do I feel like that I'm keeping a deep, dark secret? Am I being dishonest to my employee or to my employer by not disclosing? But the reality is that these hidden symptoms can pose just as much challenge and oftentimes may lead to greater misunderstanding if it's not talked about. And again, we include here just some of the other hidden disabilities, just from that, again, realization that multiple sclerosis is not the only hidden disability, but can include things like seizure disorder, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, psychiatric illness, learning disabilities. The list really can go on and on. Um, so again, these were symptoms that you saw on the previous slide, but just want to call out the more common hidden symptoms. Again, fatigue. And this is not like if you stayed up late one night, but oftentimes people with MS talk about it's this overwhelming fatigue where oftentimes if they take a break and they kind of take a nap or rest or meditate, they can then come back refreshed. But this is a really devastating symptom to a lot of people. Tingling and numbness in various parts of the body, cognitive symptoms, again, memory, processing, being easily distracted, vision problems. It could be loss of vision in some of the field of vision or double vision, bowel and bladder problems, pain, temperature sensitivity. Oftentimes people share that when their body temperature is elevated, that they may experience almost like a pseudo exacerbation or kind of temporary symptoms that might present themselves. So keeping a person's core body temperature down oftentimes is going to be key. And then some of the emotional changes, again, just these are fairly common in people with MS. So what are some of the legal protections that a person with MS might tap into in the workplace? The ADA and or the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, specifically Section 504, obviously Rehab Act as it pertains to the federal government. The ADA, that would apply to private employers with 15 or more employees, and so on and so forth. Obviously, these are some of the main laws that deal with disclosure and accommodations, anti discrimination. I do always like to point out that when the ADA was amended back in 2008, and when the final regulations came out, and in the final regulations, the EEOC did list 13 conditions that are presumed to meet the definition of a person with a disability under the ADA. Multiple sclerosis is actually one of those conditions listed. So this was a big, I think this led to a lot of sigh of reliefs from people who are living with MS, just to know that that is a law that, for the most part, they're presumed that they're going to be able to tap into it when and if they might need to. Family Medical Leave Act is another law that a person may need to at some point tap into in terms of to help them maintain employment. So if a person may be going through either the diagnosis process and missing time from work and may have exhausted all of their sick leave or their paid time off, or if a person may be going through an exacerbation or a flare-up and really having difficulty maintaining employment, a person might choose to tap into the Family and Medical Leave Act just for that job protected leave. Again, we always counsel the constituents that we work with that this is leave without pay. So there is that financial considerations to take into account. Look to your agency, to your employer. Can you use your short-term disability to run concurrently with that? But again, that may be a law that a person may need to request some information on or may need to tap into at some point. And then COBRA is the third kind of main law that oftentimes we hear from people with MS that they're looking for information about. Health insurance and maintaining health insurance is key for people who are living with MS. The disease-modifying therapies that I mentioned earlier, those medications cost thousands of dollars a month. So when a person faces a possible career change or a job change, that fear or the apprehension of not having health insurance can be very challenging for people with MS. So COBRA may be utilized in order to help tide them over until that new insurance does start. Obviously, with the Affordable Care Act, that has also kind of changed the health insurance landscape for people with MS and people with chronic illnesses. But again, if a person may be leaving your agency or leaving a job and there's a waiting period for their health insurance to start, COBRA may be something that they want to receive some information about. Disclosure issues. Again, part of the counseling work that I do with our constituents is just to have the discussion with people that knowing that disclosure is a major concern for many individuals with MS and one that they might grapple with at various points of their life living and working with MS. I always stress the relationship between disclosure and accommodations, that oftentimes those two topics do dovetail. Um, I do always really stress that this is a personal uh, choice to make. I can't tell an employee, yes, definitely disclose, or no, don't. But what I want to do is more have a conversation with them about what's going on at work that's making you think that you want to or that you don't want to. What are the pros and cons? We're going to talk about that here in the next slide. What are the pros and cons of that decision? Really stressing that ultimately it is the employee's choice. Oftentimes I get asked questions about timing. When is the right time? This again is no two situations are the same. Oftentimes I really focus with that individual on when is the right time, but also who is the right person? Is it your direct supervisor? Is it an EEO person? Is it someone in your HR department? Because that could vary from employer to employer. So who is a question to ask? When, the timing, do you disclose during the interview? Do you disclose when the offer's made? Do you disclose after you've been working for a few weeks, months? You can see if you need any sort of accommodations, or do you never need to disclose if you don't need any accommodations and your MS is not directly impacting you on the job? So again, no two situations are the same. I do talk with our constituents about, in some situations, disclosure may be beneficial in a way. And I usually do highlight things like Schedule A in terms of the federal government with the selective placement program coordinators or the disability program managers, just that selective placement idea, and also with the Section 503 in terms of the federal government contractors. So it is a decision that, or a conversation that I have with the constituents that I'm working with, but ultimately it's their choice to make. I've definitely worked with many people throughout the years who choose never to disclose and don't need any accommodations, and their MS is not at all impacting them on the job. And I've worked with some constituents who really from the get-go want to disclose right away, so there's no question when and if something does come up in the future that they feel like that already it is out there. But again, every person, every situation, every employer is different. Part of the work that I do is really talk about the pros and cons of the disclosure process. Again, the advantages or the pros could be reducing stress, allows you to do that education, kind of allows you to more freely explore your benefits, allows you to ask for the accommodations. The cons or the potential negatives that people share with me about is they have this fear of being pigeonholed, being overlooked for promotions, ultimately losing their job, don't want to be seen as different again. These are just some of the decisions that maybe that your employees or your coworkers with MS may be grappling with. Some of the tips for disclosure, and again, I really do work with everybody one-on-one just to really figure out what works for them, but the importance of practicing it. I do what's called a disclosure script training with people, really looking at what sorts of sound bites, what sorts of language would you use. Try to figure out who is the, again, use here, who is the appropriate person, when is the correct time, what to say, and why. What are your reasons for wanting to disclose? The disclosure script is from the most basic level comprised of 4 different parts, disclosing the condition. This is even a discussion that I have with folks. Do you need to give medical diagnosis or can you use more general language? I have a medical condition or a neurological condition without necessarily giving a name to it. Some people do want to, and it would be more beneficial to say that it's MS so as to not minimize any confusion or misperceptions or misunderstanding, but also some people from that kind of maintaining privacy might choose initially not to give a medical diagnosis. Relating it to the individual symptoms, what sorts of symptoms do they have? Not a laundry list, but just kind of what are the main ones that may be impacting them on the job? What are the accommodations that are needed? And ultimately finishing on a positive note. Again, really stressing that ultimately this is the employee's responsibility to be proactive and to kind of go through this disclosure and accommodation request process. So we can't talk about disclosure without also mentioning accommodations. Many people living with MS want to and continue to work for many years. And oftentimes symptoms can be accommodated. So utilizing computer technology, I know the Job Accommodation Network that presented earlier this month, I believe was really focusing on some of the technology that's available that has really kind of leveled the playing field a lot in terms of people with disabilities, but especially people who are living with MS. Flexible work schedules. We see this as being very beneficial in terms of providing some accommodations, whether it's telework, working alternative hours, compressed work weeks, those sorts of things to help manage the fatigue and some of those other challenging symptoms that people may experience, bowel and bladder, cognitive symptoms. Again, really looking at the work setup, trying to reduce the clutter or the distractions. And know that also with MS, that the types of and the need for the accommodations may change over time as the person experiences changes in their symptoms. So this is something that you wouldn't necessarily talk with an employee once. Those accommodations that they need now might work for the next short period of time, but if there's a change, in the future, they either might not need those accommodations anymore, or they might need new or different ones. These next few slides just give some common practical accommodation strategies. So again, you see here fatigue, flexible work hours, combining breaks, taking a rest period, cognitive symptoms, trying to eliminate the distractions, keeping your workplace organized. I've worked with some folks who, have requested to sit, especially as we so oftentimes sit out in cubicle environments, to sit in a more quiet corner as opposed to on a main kind of thoroughfare where everybody's walking by. Just that can be distracting. Heat sensitivity, looking at things like putting a fan on a person's desk. There's also cooling vests or cooling devices that might be available. Fine motor, so kind of difficulty feeling your fingers, looking at different sorts of technology can really prove beneficial. Gross motor, a person may use a scooter or a wheelchair. So really just looking at the physical accessibility of a work site. Vision difficulties, again, looking at some of the built-in accessibility features into computers nowadays to increase the font size. Looking at the proper glaring fluorescent lighting can be difficult. So can you use some task lighting directly on your desk? Those sorts of activities. This is not, or those sorts of accommodation ideas. This is not by any stretch of the imagination a full exhaustive list. Jan, as always, is an amazing resource that we typically refer our constituents to just to brainstorm some ideas, and also the employers that we work with. I always like to kind of talk about, before we get into our resources here, just what are some of the best practices that you, the employer community, might be able to look at in terms of supporting your employees and your coworkers with MS. Just create an environment of openness and support. Again, knowing that disclosure and requesting accommodations can be stressful for that employee. Be supportive of that employee if they disclose just for disclosure's sake. Again, I've worked with a lot of people who just want it to be out there just in case something happens in the future that they need to request some accommodations. So just be open and supportive of that. Again, realize that variability of symptoms may require the accommodations to change. Confidentiality is key. Oftentimes I do encourage people that I work with, if you are disclosing to one person, to be proactive. Do we need to bring anybody else into the loop? But just as much as you can to maintain the confidentiality. Be open to questions about the employer-sponsored benefits. And I know many employers do offer employee employee resource group. So that's, again, another, I think, a best practice, something that I think will show your employees that you truly support and appreciate the employees with disabilities. In the interest of time, because I do want to allow some time for questions and answers, I'm going to skip over the real life success stories. I've talked throughout the training about some of kind of the examples that I've had with some constituents that I've worked with. So wanted to talk just a few minutes about some of the resources that would be available. The National MS Society, we do have a variety of different employment-related publications and brochures. You see several titles. I do want to point out that we do have one specific one that is called Information for Employers, which is really specifically designed for the employer community. Our website is nationalmssociety.org, and we do have a specific page that really focuses in on the employment concerns, nationalmssociety.org/employment. You'll see different links about disclosure, about career change, and we do maintain a toll-free phone number, 1-800-344-4867. We have several programs, videos, and toolkits that are geared towards either the employer community, again, MS in the Workplace, a guide for employers. This is a DVD. It's about 11, 12 minutes. It's also available on our YouTube channel. I list here, obviously, the Job Accommodation Network. That's one of the best resources that I know I use all the time, and I know that they spoke about multiple sclerosis earlier in the month. And then the National ADA Network, and then also the Able Data, again, abledata.com, really from that perspective of looking at assistive technology and the technology possibilities. And then just wanted to highlight a little bit more about what sorts of programs and services that we offer at the National MS Society. So we are a nationwide organization. We actually do have an international component as well. That's called the Multiple Sclerosis International Federation. But there are local offices throughout the country. nationalmssociety.org/chapters. If we have people on the line that are not from the Washington, D.C. area. But some of the services that we offer include information and a referral. I'm looking to learn more about this treatment or get a referral to a local doctor or want to apply for services through my county. We offer self-help groups, different sorts of teleconferences. We just completed a 4-part employment webinar series ourselves, sponsored by the National MS Society, wellness programs, financial assistance, advocacy. We do have a variety of different publications and brochures. Momentum is our nationwide magazine. We do also have an online community, which is www.msconnection.org. And just March is actually Multiple Sclerosis Awareness Month, and we have started a fairly new campaign that's called Together We Are Stronger. So you can see the website here, www.wearestrongerthanms.org, as a way that people can post their stories and their videos about kind of how they're stronger than their multiple sclerosis. And we are a nonprofit. We do offer a variety of different fundraising events. So if people also may want to get involved on that level, we have walks, we have bikes, we have different sorts of challenge types of activities and events that you can either participate as a participant, you can fundraise, you can be a volunteer. There are definitely ways that you can get connected to the National MS Society. So just some key points to remember. Again, MS is an unpredictable, variable, and progressive disease. No two people are the same. Again, take away from today's call, if you know one person with MS, you've met one person with MS, and just look at that person, because really no two people are the same. Given that MS is, considered to be an adult onset disabilities, oftentimes people with MS have a considerable professional experience. They can contribute and do contribute a lot to the workforce. The importance of non-apparent or the hidden symptoms, be aware of disclosure and the accommodations, but ultimately, again, and having that good communication with your employees, being open and supportive, success is possible, and people with MS can and should be encouraged to work for and to contribute to their employers for as long as they possibly can. I know we have just a few minutes for questions, but again, you see here on the slide to my contact information. If there is any questions that people might choose to follow up with me privately about, feel free to send me an email, steve.nissen, Nissen, at nmss.org. You see here my direct phone number is 303-698-6110. You can also, again, go onto our website or call us through our toll-free number as well. With that, Paul, I will, looks like we've got just about 2 or 3 minutes, but I haven't seen any questions come in here, so not sure if people now want to take the opportunity to submit any questions for me.
Yes, this is Paul. I don't see any. We'll give it 1 more minute, and then we will wrap things up. And again, you can use the contact information to send questions as well. So,
and I can say, Paul, too, I definitely do want to thank you and the Target Center. You know, I know that I'm, I think, the 3rd or 4th program on multiple sclerosis in the month of March. So it's really wonderful that your agency and that your center wanted to focus on multiple sclerosis during our multiple sclerosis